But let me ask you the other, I think, really important question is in your plan, how would you pay for this? Because there have been different ideas that I've seen, changes to the earned income tax credit. I mean, let's get into the brass tacks. How would Andrew Yang pitch paying for something that could be 10 to 12% of the GDP, that expensive of a government program?
So again, I just want to say it's not a government program and that every dollar goes into the hands of an American citizen. It's a true dividend, where if you were a company and you said, hey, we're declaring a dividend, we're giving this money to shareholders, then everyone would say that's great management. In this case, we, the citizens of this country, are the owners, and if the dividend comes to us, then it's not a government program, it's simply the shareholders of society receiving some of the vast wealth of the society. So it's not a government program, it's actually extraordinarily inexpensive to administer, because if it's truly universal, you don't have case managers or people trying to figure out how much money you make. Like, all of that stuff goes away.
But at least in the short term, the funding would have to come.
Right. So, so it's actually much more affordable than most people think. So the headline number is about $2 trillion. Our economy is about 19 trillion, so that seems like a lot. But if you dig into the numbers, you find that we're spending about $500 billion right now on income support in various ways: in-kind, food stamps, welfare, housing, Social Security, disability. And this would be overlapping. So if someone's receiving, let's say, $700 in benefits right now, then you go to them and say, hey, you can keep your current benefits, or you can go to the Freedom Dividend and get $1,000 a month free and clear.
So they would have the option.
They would have the option. But because we're already spending $500 billion, this thing is 25% paid for before you even get started.
Because you wouldn't be able to have both. You wouldn't be able to have Medicare. I mean, that was one of my questions, is what it would do to other governmental assistance programs.
Yes. So I believe that we need to transition to a Medicare for All program, because healthcare is one of the major stressors and costs for both American families and individuals, but also businesses. And it's 18% of the economy. It's not giving us proper value, because it's not like our healthcare outcomes are twice as good as other countries, even though we're spending twice as much. But my proposal to pay for universal basic income does not touch Medicaid, Medicare. The $500 billion I described does not include those programs.
Social Security?
So it includes Social Security disability, which is when individuals are receiving income support. So the big problem we're facing as a society is that more and more work is being done by machines, robots, AI, software. And income tax is a terribly inefficient way of actually harvesting that value for the public. So if you look at it, who are going to be the beneficiaries of this transition to automation? It's going to be large tech companies who are excellent at not paying a lot of tax.
Very good at offshore tax havens.
Just move it over and say it all went through Ireland. Small tech companies, which are often not profitable, and then if they do get acquired, it's maybe a one-time thing and they might have to pay on an acquisition at a certain point, but even then it's at a capital gains rate. So there's just not a lot of money that's going to be coming to the public, even as more and more work is going to be done by robots and software. So that's what we need to change, and that's the way we pay for universal basic income. The way we pay for it is we implement a value-added tax, which right now is in practice in every other industrialized country in the world except for us. And through a value-added tax then, so Amazon, now it's 43% of e-commerce, largest market cap. Jeff Bezos could be the first trillionaire. But there are periods when they said, hey, we didn't even make any money this quarter, so no income tax. Whereas a value-added tax, then they pay based on transaction, and that's inescapable. That's one reason why other countries use it, is that it's a much, much more effective way to get revenue. And so if you're a self-driving truck company, you might not have many humans making money, and so there's not much income tax coming, but a value-added tax, then we get our fair share. And a value-added tax would generate between $700 and $800 billion if we were to implement it at half the European level. The European average VAT is 20%. Our economy is so vast that if we had a VAT of 10%, it would generate $700 to $800 billion. So that is my primary mechanism to pay for the universal basic income, because you have $500 billion plus $800 billion in the VAT. So then you're at about 65% of the $2 trillion. And then the remainder, this is the beauty of universal basic income. we are already spending hundreds of billions on healthcare, incarceration, homelessness, like all of these services for people that are falling through the cracks, that those expenses would go down if these people are able to stay out of the emergency room.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because the Peterson Institute, I was looking at some of their research, apparently in the 70s in Manitoba, Canada, I feel like there was an experiment done with several thousand people that looked at universal basic income. So there is some empirical evidence of what happens, right? And I found it interesting that once a universal income was provided, there were better outcomes when it came to things like health and education.
Yeah. So
what's happening there?
And this is the most powerful stuff of universal basic income, is that it's very human. So Mincom, in that Canadian town you're describing, what they found was that hospital visits went down 9%. They found that domestic violence went down, mental health went up, and children stayed in school longer. In another study in North Carolina, they actually found that children's personalities changed to become more conscientious and agreeable, which are both very positive traits for academic and professional success. So this is what we're talking about at the human level. And so if you can imagine, right now, you know what's really, really expensive? Dysfunction. People coming to the emergency room and then like having massive problems that we as a society end up paying for in various ways. Functionality is actually much less expensive. So we're going to get hundreds of billions back from things we're currently spending on healthcare and incarceration and homelessness. And then as the economy grows, because we're putting money in the hands of American consumers, we get 25% of the growth back, because that's the ratio of revenue to GDP growth in the US. So with a VAT of 10%, you essentially pay for $1,000 a month per American adult in perpetuity.